So thank you very much, everyone, and welcome to this TAPAS lunchtime seminar. Today we have our speaker, Kayla Schulte. Apologies if I haven't, spoke the name correctly. So this is so I'm kind of filling up for Professor Paulus, Linden today. And my name is Prashant Kumar, and I'm professor and chair in air quality and health, and the founding director of center is called the Global Center for Clean Air Research. So if you are new to this webinar series, so the TAPAS stands for Tackling Air Pollution at School, and this is one of the 6 NERC or the SPF, the clean air funded networks. And this is the third series of lunchtime, the seminars, which is bringing the speakers, across a wide range of, the expertise. So just to give a few the housekeeping notes. So this session is recorded so that the people who are not being able to make it today can, attend it, can watch this webinar later on. Please keep your yourself on mute, throughout the webinar. Please put your questions in the chat box if you have any, and I will then read it for you to Kayla at the end of the presentation. And this session is end at 13 today because Kayla has some other commitments at that time. So hopefully we'll have a little bit of time to for the question answer sessions. So just to introduce Kayla, so Kayla is from University of Oxford, and she's linked with the another, the NERC SPF network, which is called Transition. So Kayla is a DPhil candidate at the Oxford, and she's at the Liverpool Center for Demographic Science in the Department of Sociology. Her research explores how tools and technologies like portable sensors and mobile and web apps are used to understand and communicate air quality. A key goal of her research is to deliver new insights into how this tech is transforming experiences, perceptions, and behaviors around air pollution. So previously, Kayla worked with the United States Environmental Protection Agency and completed her MSc at Oxford in Geography and BA in Environmental Studies at Franklin and Marshall College. So thank you very much, Kayla, for presenting the webinar today. So over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kumar, for your introductions and for the opportunity to speak to you all today. I'm really excited to share my research. And as Dr. Kumar mentioned, unfortunately, we have to I have to end a little bit early because I have a teaching commitment at 2 p.m. I'm teaching about internet technologies and regulations, so exciting stuff. Also, just to mention that the research I'm presenting to you today is currently under review for publication, so please don't take any screenshots. And I realize that we're recording, but perhaps I'll discuss with the organizers when that recording gets uploaded. But to be completely honest, all of this information that I'm presenting to you, for the most part, is publicly available, and I'm all about open knowledge and information sharing. So, yes, the title of my presentation today is Air Quality Information Channels in London, When and Where Are They Consulted? And I'll explain to you what I mean by channel in a second. Yes, as Dr. Kumar mentioned, I also wanted to say I serve as the engagement officer for TAPAS's sister clean air network called Transition, which is focused on reducing air pollution across the UK land transport sector. But presenting to you today in my capacity as a doctoral candidate at Oxford. Right, so here's an overview of what I'm going to present to you today. I'll start by describing what motivated this research project, the key questions driving this project, and the methods I employed in order to respond to those research questions. I will then present the findings that emerged from this research and discuss them simultaneously. So findings and discussion lumped together. And then I'm going to finish with my conclusions and some of my future research plans. And then hopefully we can get into a nice discussion about all of this. And I'm really, really eager to hear from you all. Actually, maybe before we start, I wanted to ask, I'm curious where folks are joining us from today. I'm curious about your backgrounds. Are you academics? Are you practitioners? If anybody is willing, if you could just kind of unmute yourself and say kind of what background you're coming from, just so I can maybe tailor a little bit better. Yeah.
Hi, Kayla. I'm Peter Carey. I work for the London Borough of Waltham Forest. I'm an environmental health officer dealing with air quality issues. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. Anyone else want to jump in?
Yeah, my name's Pete Knapp. I'm a PhD student in air quality, specifically charge distributions.
Great.
Okay,
great.
It's Tom Lynn from Windowmaster. We work with building owners and design teams to look at automating windows for natural ventilation and optimizing air quality. Obviously, increasing that's to accommodate pollution challenges.
Very cool. Anyone else want to jump in real quick? Right. Well, I recognize some names, so that's great. That's great. So it sounds like we've got some academics, some practitioners, and thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. Right. So motivation. Just a bit of background about what motivated this research project for me and my general interest in air quality information. I began my foray into the world of air pollution monitoring when I joined the ACE team, that is the Air, Climate, and Energy Research Program at the US Federal Environmental Protection Agency back in 2014. And there I was exposed, no pun intended, to emerging low-cost technologies like air sensors and web and mobile applications being used to communicate information about air quality in real time. So what do I mean by AQ channels or air quality information channels in the long form? This is a label that I've assigned to describe these proliferating internet-enabled air quality information sources that supply readings about pollution readings in real or near real time. So I was exposed to these technologies and just became really fascinated by the whole dynamic and was inspired to apply for a master's at the University of Oxford, where I was then exposed to just tremendous mind-expanding theory and empirical research surrounding knowledge production processes and digital engagement. So how do people generate knowledge about environmental phenomena like air pollution? And how are people producing and exchanging knowledge about environmental concepts when interacting with the internet? How is the internet changing those dynamics? So just lots and lots of questions were coming up for me. I also saw an opportunity to engage, to examine how potential barriers to accessing information about the environment might exist. You can see it, it's a little bit small, but on the slide, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but I have the pipeline of online participation that was presented by Shah and Hajiarty in 2018. And it's this idea of portions of the population being cut off at certain stages when they have the potential to engage with different sources of digitally available information. And we're gaining more and more knowledge now about what those barriers are. Are they social? Are they physical, technical? Like, is it because somebody doesn't have access to a device, to the internet, et cetera? So what are those barriers? Who is engaging with this information and who isn't engaging with this information? So yes, that led to, all of this led to my graduate research, where I've been designing research projects to really respond to these overarching questions of how is air quality understood by different actors and groups, who is accessing real-time air quality information, why do they access it, and what are the broader social, environmental, and health implications of these information access patterns. So that all led to the research question for this project, which is when and where are freely available air quality channels consulted across London, UK? And I'll explain what I mean by freely available in quotations later on. Right, so just to run through the methods that I applied in order to answer these research questions. I relied on web and app store searches to produce a data set containing these freely available air quality channels. And what I mean by that is channels that are accessible without additional charge or paywall. So you don't have to pay for them, enter payment or card information. And I'm considering that you would still have access to a computer, tablet, or smartphone device. So I'm not considering that to be a barrier within the context of this particular research project, right? So accessible without additional charge by paywall, aside from the ownership of a computer, tablet, or smartphone device. The searches were conducted using the Google search engine on the Apple App Store and on the Google Play App Store, and involved inputting different permutations of search terms, including air quality, air pollution, forecast, or nowcast, and London, UK. And I have a full detailed list of the search permutations I used in my manuscript. If anyone has questions about that, feel free to check in with me later. Right, so metadata was harvested manually for each of the channels resulting from the search process. I gathered 4 categories of metadata. The first being general information like the channel's name, the date it was launched, and the total number of downloads throughout its period of existence. The second category of metadata I collected was air pollution reading technological specifications. So that included which pollutants are being reported and the methods or models that are used to generate the pollution estimates presented by that channel. The third category was messaging specifications. So how is the information presented visually, numerically? Is it a color system? Does it look like the AQI or the DAQI? And for those of you who aren't familiar, the AQI is a standardized health and air quality messaging information delivery format. So that's developed by the governments, by the UK government, by DEFRA, informed by the Committee on Medical Effects of Air Pollution to standardize air pollution reporting. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. The last category was channel accessibility features. So I collected data on whether that channel was available via app, through a web link, through a sensor, just like a sensor screen. And if that was the case, it would have been eliminated from the list, because that would mean you would have to own a device beyond a computer, tablet, phone, etc. Right, so I drew on PRISMA guidelines. Oh, I can see I didn't finish that point on the slide, but I incorporated a standard procedure for identifying and screening the channels resulting from my preliminary search exercise in order to determine their eligibility for inclusion in my study. And to be included in the study, an air quality channel had to, again, be accessible without additional charge, provide air pollution estimates at a maximum time frequency of once daily to remain within the scope of near real time, and had to possess a user interface displaying an air quality reading. So after refining that list, the remaining channels were sorted in the order of highest to lowest amount of access or number of downloads according to user analytics data that I had collected. I used Google Play Store metadata for this, and the range of downloads was between 100 million and 1, which is quite a range. I use this as a proxy for popularity and took channels in the upper third portion, as well as channels that specifically cited London or catering to London, which resulted in the final data set of 54 air quality channels. Also, to mention, anonymized user analytics data was obtained for 3 of the air quality channels on the final resulting list. And these 3 channels are launched in partnership with the London Mayor's Office. They include the AirTech service, London Air, and the Breathe London pilot. And these case examples were used to help me answer the research questions outlined at the beginning. That is, when and where are AQ channels consulted in London? Right. So when did these channels emerge? So the 54 air quality channels resulting from the technology review were launched between the years of 1995 and 2020. I finished my data collection in February of 2020, so hence the cutoff date at 2020. I'm curious, does anybody know which channel was first launched in 1995? Anyone have any ideas?
London Air?
It wasn't London Air, good guess. Anyone else have any idea? Right, so that was close. It was UK Air, and UK Air had a system called AEAT, and it was one of the first websites ever out there on the internet. And it reported average air pollution, I believe at an hourly rate. I have to double check. But yeah, this real-time reporting of air pollution data dates back to the 90s. So that was definitely a pioneering endeavor. But as you can see, we've got a gradual increase of the number of channels being released, with kind of a strong uptick in 2015, a large number of them being released in 2017. Then we start to see a bit of a drop off after 2017, with a stark drop in 2020. And my hypothesis about this is that the drop off in 2020 is likely related to COVID-19 and the stalling of various enterprises. There's also, we'll discuss this a little bit later, there's been a transition in the way that air pollution information and data is being shared in the digital space. So what this is capturing is really a trend in kind of the popularity of app and web app air quality information delivery. And now we're transitioning into more of an API world. And I'll talk about APIs later and define that term for you all. Right, so let's move on. So modes of estimating air pollution. So here is my nice Venn diagram showing all 54 resulting air quality channels and the ways that they come up with their air pollution reading that they're delivering to users through their visual interfaces. So 18 or 33% of the channels derive pollution estimates solely through the use of nowcasted models, which is shown, those channels are shown here up in the purple area at the top. And just to describe and define nowcasting, it's a method of estimating air pollution which relies on pulling together different data sets, most often traffic patterns, weather and atmospheric data, and then reprojecting those estimates after conducting various statistical modeling techniques, reprojecting those onto the geographic landscape at different spatial resolutions. So not accounting for the accuracy of the estimates, but the smallest resolution I've come across is 5 meters squared. I'd be curious if anyone else wants to challenge that or has seen other geographic resolutions. The environmental research group at Imperial, which generates the pollution estimates for the London Air Platform channel, projects at a geographic resolution of 20 meters squared, and estimates generated using satellite data can range from about 1 kilometer to 100 kilometers squared. So there's quite a variation in the spatial resolution at which your pollution estimate or reading is being delivered. That's worth thinking about. Right, so 14 of the air quality channels generate data using regulatory monitors alone. And to clarify, when I use the term regulatory monitor, or when I use the term monitor, I'm referring to regulatory instrumentation. And when I say sensor, I'm referring to non-regulatory, often lower cost instrumentation, which can produce data of different quality. And there's a huge politics around air pollution data quality, as most of you are probably aware, which I find fascinating, frustrating, inspiring, all the things. Definitely a lot more work to be done in that area. Right, and 3 of the air quality channels resulting from the technology search rely on non-regulatory sensors alone, and 1 use smartphone camera hardware. So if you remember my criteria for inclusion, I didn't include data quality as one of my requirements. It was about open access availability and popularity. So one of the channels claims to be able to generate an estimate of particulate matter by using the camera on the phone, which is very interesting. We can talk more about that later. So yes, overall nowcasted models, or nowcasting, is the most common method for deriving air pollution estimates, with a total of 30 channels, or 56% of the channels from the final list implementing that method. And this is followed by a total of 28 channels, or 52%, relying on regulatory monitoring data to deliver air pollution estimates. As you can see, there's overlap here. So a number of the channels rely on multiple methods for generating their air pollution reading. So just to kind of hone in on the nowcasting methods. So the 30 channels that rely on nowcasting methods to deliver their air pollution readings are shown here, listed on the left side. They can be traced back to 6 specific sets of models. So that means that they're drawing on the same data sets in order to deliver their reading, which I think is fascinating, that you're able to reduce the volume of air quality channels that are out there to these specific modeling endeavors. And if you look at the modeling endeavors on, I guess that's the right-hand side, the darker gray column, you might be able to recognize some of these models and recognize who is operating them. So at the top, AQM and CMAC, those are models that are run and implemented by Ricardo. Then there's CMAC Urban, which is the one that's implemented by Imperial, ADMS Urban by the Cambridge Environmental Research Consultants, and then the different ones that are implemented by the European Commission. Then we've got proprietary composite models at the bottom. I've kind of lumped those together, and those are implemented by proprietary companies, and those are most often associated with a consumer product. And this is really interesting because it points to the commercialization, commodification of air pollution exposure reduction, and emphasizing that by engaging with a tool, with a sensor, with air pollution information, and potentially purchasing a product, you can have a better chance at reducing your exposure. So that's a really interesting topic that's coming out of some of this research. And we can talk a little bit more about that later. There's some great literature that really kind of delves into that area. Oh, to mention, the proprietary composite models draw on the five models that are listed above. So, and they're a bit black box, so we don't entirely know how the proprietary models are utilizing the outputs of the models that are run by those academic and environmental consulting and European Commission kind of larger government operations. Okay, moving on to some of the findings from the in-depth case examples for which detailed user analytics data was obtained. So in response to the question, where are air quality channels consulted, we're looking to AirText data here. And AirText is a text and phone call based service operated by Cambridge Environmental Research Consultants, which you saw on the other slide. They're the one who operates the ADMS model. So they shared an anonymized sample of about 15,000 subscribers to the AirText service between the years of 2007 and 2020. Just some descriptives on the sample. Over 50 of the sample reported as having pre-existing health conditions, and the age structure was skewed towards older individuals. And when I conducted a linear regression, it pointed to population density being a key driver for the higher access to the service according to each borough, right? So population size is driving increased access. However, this warrants additional research into what patterns are driving access to this particular air quality channel as well as others. And that speaks to my future research directions and one of the research projects I'm working on now with Global Action Plan. You can't really see here, I apologize, it's quite small, but the borough with the highest access is City of London, followed by Barking and Dagenham, and then Islington and Wandsworth. So, you know, this is, as far as I'm aware, the first time we're able to kind of see the volume of access by geographic area to an air quality channel. So really interesting, and again, warrants additional kind of delving into what's driving these patterns. When are air quality channels consulted? I'm going to try and wrap up because I want us to have time to chat. So these are the other two channels for which in-depth user analytics data was collected: London Air and the Breathe London pilot, just so you can see what they look like. These channels showed on weekdays increased access between the hours of 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. for London Air and 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. For London Air and 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. for Breathe London. We can hypothesize that individuals might be checking the channels before they depart for their commute in the morning, hence the uptick of access in the morning hours. And both channels also show peak visits around 2 p.m., which might indicate parents checking the channel before collecting children at school. Again, data sets that warrant a bit more research in order to determine what is driving these patterns of access. Also to kind of show you on a daily basis what visits to these channels look like. So average daily visits, London Air sees approximately 669 per day, and Breathe London saw 136 between July 2019 and 2020. And just an interesting thing to point out, the days when access spiked for London Air and Breathe London don't appear to correlate with high pollution events. However, on one of the days demonstrating the highest access across both the Breathe London and London Air web platforms, which was October 21st of 2020, The Guardian released 2 articles on the subject of air pollution, and no direct links in this article were included to either channel, suggesting that individuals took it upon themselves to seek out this air pollution information. So that's interesting and points to a possible causal link between news articles and engagement with air quality channels. That again, I'd love to research that further and hope to tackle that with some of my future research projects. All right, I'm not going to focus too much on this, but I just wanted to show you what some of these channels look like if you haven't actually engaged with them yourself. Here on the right, we've got what the UK DEQI looks like, and I mentioned that I was going to talk about that a little bit more, but I think I want to move on and just kind of get to the end so we have some time to chat. All right. So just to highlight some of the limitations of my research of this project, its exclusive focus on London, UK. I had to kind of draw some boundaries in order to obtain a list of channels that I could conduct an analysis on. AQ channel use is increasing and has been prevalent in Asia, particularly in China and India, where greater numbers of individuals are exposed to more dangerous levels of air pollution. And you know, this research could be very interesting in those areas. There is research happening on air quality channels in those areas, but I think what's really important to remember is developing a research design that is really aligned with the culture and norms of the area in which you're conducting that research. So, you know, I'd love to be involved in that research, but I would want to really partner with institutions that are based locally in those regions. Also to mention, the results related to access presented in this study are not necessarily representative of population level patterns of access to air quality channels, clearly, because I only focused on 3 specific channels. But again, this is something that I'm hoping to address with future research. And the direction I'm moving in now addresses the final point of looking to more detailed sociodemographically linked user analytics data, anonymized as well. You know, really, really important to not be violating anybody's privacy. And using this to uncover whether patterns of access are related to particular social and demographic conditions or groups. So yes, just in conclusion, air quality channels rely on common mechanisms and models to deliver air pollution estimates. And I'm just seeing my computer says it's going to fall asleep. Oh, sorry. Okay. Plug wasn't on. There is high variability in the geographic scope for which air pollution estimates are delivered across the 54 channels reviewed. A high proportion of the channels in this review were associated with personal air quality sensors or other commercial products such as masks, air filtration devices, or API services, which allow people to pay for access to air pollution data. And that data is being used by a whole host of companies, from kind of makeup companies to urban planners. The list goes on. We can talk more about that if anybody's interested. Also, to highlight peaks in access to the major air quality channels, including London Air and Breathe London, appear to coincide with the publication of journalistic pieces in The Guardian, and less so with high pollution events. And just to kind of highlight some of my future research, I'm right now working on a project in partnership with Global Action Plan, which I believe is a partner in with TAPAS, the TAPAS network, to explore which groups across London are most likely to engage with air quality information and potentially adopt exposure reducing behaviors. Right, and those are my references. And yeah, here are a few photos of me with air sensors and one of my colleagues, Carl Dudman. So thank you so much for allowing me to share some of my doctoral research with you. And I'm going to check the chat now to see if there are any questions, and I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, so Kayla, thank you very much for the very interesting presentation. So we got a few questions, and I can see that we got around 10 minutes, so I can read out for you. Before I go on, I just wondering actually, it's quite interesting to see the number of channels increased over the years and then see a kind of decline, which is interesting given that you know, the sensors are becoming more widespread actually to be able to produce that information. But did you notice that, is there any, what is the lifetime, typical lifetime of these channels have been, and whether, is there any particular channel which has been continuing for a long time?
It's a really good question. Yes, so like anything, or like most things on the internet, it almost becomes like an archive and has this kind of eternal existence of sorts. And maybe I'm kind of being dramatic about that, but there are definitely a lot of channels that were created at one point and just kind of persist, and the underlying mechanisms are still functional, operational, so they're still producing pollution estimates. But if you look at the last date of update, which is another metadata field that I collected for each of the channels, you can see like the last date of update for a lot of them was, you know, back in 2017, and then hasn't been any updates in the past 3 years. So that's another really interesting finding to highlight, that you know, they're created at one point and then they're kind of just left in cyberspace. And your second question, I'm sorry, I blanked. I got too excited answering your first.
No, I just wanted to you know, to highlight basically what has been the long-standing channels, like you know, but I think we answered that.
Oh yes.
Already, yeah.
The ones that have been around for quite a long time. All right, so the ones that that I listed in the beginning, the oldest ones, so UK Air, London Air, and World AQI, WAQI. Those have been around for ages. WAQI has been around for ages, and anecdotally, I've spoken with people who live in Asia, and they say that they consult that one, and that one draws directly on regulatory monitoring stations, in addition to nowcasts generated by the European Commission, European weather services for Europe at least. So yeah, that's an impressive AQ channel.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there is a kind of follow-up question in there. That relates to, have you noticed inconsistencies between different AQ channels? How do community sensor websites compare?
So that is one of my next research projects. I'm actually developing kind of an automated process right now to sample air quality channels and the data that they're reporting, in order to examine variation in the pollution estimates that they're delivering for the same address. So I've written a program that kind of locks the channel into a geographic location, and I'm able to look across the channels what pollution estimate value they're reporting. So I don't have the results from that yet, but I anticipate there's going to be a lot of variation just from what I've seen by working with these various channels.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, thank you. So there's one question related to the data actually, and I guess that is an important aspect when it comes to having those now cost or the forecast. How do you explain the uncertainty in the data to the general public?
I mean, I don't know if I'm the most qualified to answer that question. One of the things that I did want to emphasize is that in my work on air quality information communication, I see a really big divergence between air pollution data and like lived experiences of air pollution, and a sort of invalidation or gaslighting of individuals who experience and share experiences of feeling like they're being exposed to poor air quality. And I don't like seeing air pollution data used to invalidate individuals' experiences. I really think that there is a way to kind of bring the two together, and that's a major goal of my research, to harmonize the quantitative air pollution data that we're now able to get from so many different sources, from sensors, from models, et cetera, and bring in the experiential data. Where do people feel like they're being exposed the most? During what walks of life? And how can we kind of bring those together to identify areas for additional research, monitoring, and management? In terms of explaining data quality to people who are not air pollution data specialists, my experience, people are really with it. It doesn't take that much explaining. It's more about like creating the spaces where we can have conversations about it, and not making it seem intimidating. I really like to highlight that air pollution data is one facet of understanding air pollution, albeit a facet that's been kind of put on a pedestal in order to regulate air pollution. We need to rely on commensurate understandings of air pollution, but when we do that, we miss out on opportunities to identify and address lived experiences of air pollution in the places that we care about. Sorry, a bit of a rant.
No, that's all right. I think we will take one more question because we are wary of the time, and that is again related to the data. Might poor data quality from some sources damage the credibility of all air quality data sources? Is asked by Peter Fleming.
Yes, I mean, I think yes, but it depends, what audiences we're talking about. If you're talking about, does it threaten a government agency's ability to say, oh, look at, or a health agency being able to say, look at this source of air pollution data to, get a gauge for whether you should be running outside today or whether you should even go outside today if you have a pre-existing health condition. It's possible, but again, I'd go back to my point about us needing more spaces where we can have conversations about the different types of air pollution data, but more importantly, air pollution information that's out there, and what types of information are going to be of value to different groups in a population.
Okay, that's brilliant. I think we almost gone through all the questions. I can still see one which is asking that which channel do you use personally and why? If you can answer
That's a really I don't use, you should see my phone. I literally, I have probably all 54 of them on my phone just because of research purposes. I have my own sensors, and I mean, I check all of them. There was one channel that I'm trying to remember that I really liked visually. I thought it was just like really brilliant. And then there was another one that had like a really nice feature for children. So you could like have a version for the adult and then a version for the children that they could switch on. But I mean, so I guess my answer is I use multiple channels. I really do. But again, this is my area of research. So I'm sorry, I can't give a really helpful answer there.
No, it's a very sensible actually to also see what's going on in all the different channels. So yeah, so I guess we can possibly conclude the seminar. So we can give a big round of applause to our speaker today for a fantastic talk and a very interesting topic. So thank you very much, Kayla.